Coaching Soccer Weekly, episode 378, Unleashing the Midfield, entertaining, educational, and inspiring soccer content to help make you a more effective coach, player, or soccer parent. Hello and welcome back to Coaching Soccer Weekly, presented by World Class Coaching. My name is Sega Rabinovich, and this is the podcast devoted to bringing you cutting-edge methods, techniques, and tactics for coaching soccer. It doesn't matter if you're an experienced coach who has been training teams for many years, or if you're new to coaching and working with a team for the very first time. There is something we can all do to take our coaching to the next level. Well, I finally got a new microphone. It took a while to get, but I got it. So hopefully the sound quality is going to be better. I'm still going to be using, there's an online platform that I convert anyway, so it should be about the same quality, good quality. The microphone that I was using before, I needed to put it on this specific website and get it analyzed and all that stuff before it would come out. So this one sounds a little bit better, I think. And then hopefully when I put it through, it'll sound even better. So that's kind of my hope for that. But thanks for sticking through everything with me. And yeah, let's get the show on the road. This week, something really interesting happened, and it started last week, actually, when I got a call from the school board, and the school board never calls me. So they called me, and that's very concerning. And the reason they called was to tell me that the school that we were using for our permit was going to go through renovations over the summer. So they are not going to be available for the rest of the year. So with that, we kind of spoke and found a different spot. And yesterday, which was Tuesday, was the first day that we went in. So whenever I'm getting a new spot, I always like to get there at least an hour and a half early. Which is too long, I think, for anyone. But I really like to get to the session early, set up, think everything through, and it worked. We did the exact same thing. For me, the way that I set up my session is pretty simple. I have two grids that are 20 steps by 27 steps. I don't like using yards. You don't bring a yardstick to a session, right? So for me, using a 20 by 27 steps. I know it's consistent. I can tell my other coaches, theirs might be a little bit bigger, smaller, because most of them are actually much bigger than me. But we did the same thing. So I put two of those. I also added our 6 rondos that we do, and those are 6 by 6 steps. We started making them a lot smaller. So before I would make them 7 to 8 steps, but I really want our players to develop that really good first touch under pressure. And in order to do that, I think the best way to get that done is to decrease space. So they have less time. And that's really just kind of what my thought process was with all that. So great first session. Today, I'm really going to be talking about the midfield. We had a 2-week break from our games. So this week, we're kind of getting back into more of a tactical element for some of the players. Not all of them. We always split half and half. Half will go do our 1v1s, and now half will come and do a full tactical session with me. And I'll talk about how I do that. And I'll have a video up on soccercoachingmastermind.com if you're in the platinum membership, and that's only $10 a month. So I like platinum. I don't know. I think it's a cool word. Makes it seem really awesome. And yeah, I don't know. Anyway, not the point. But the video will be up for this on the soccercoachingmastermind.com website. So stay tuned for that. This week we didn't have a Zoom session because it was the long weekend. A lot of players went away and just kind of wanted to give everyone a break, including myself, just to kind of recharge and get ready to get into a very tactical week, which again will be the main concern of this podcast today. If you are looking for a VO is absolutely amazing. For us, we use it for all our games, and I think I'm going to start recording sessions as well. So that'll be really cool. We've done it before when we did our March break camp, so this is something that I want to do as well. But if you're looking for a VO, you can get $200 off. There is an iPad, free iPad with it. I know someone bought it already this month using our coupon code. So please, if you're getting a VO, you might as well get some money off, right? So come use our coupon code, $200 off and a free iPad. That's like, I don't know, $500-$600 value. I don't know how much iPads are these days. I might get some flack for this, but I don't have any. Well, that's not true. My computers are, they're not Mac. They're Alienware, the one that I have. And my phone is an iPhone. So I don't have any iPads or anything like that, but I would love one. I think that would make things so much easier on the field. You know, if you had an iPad and you were able to program and write stuff down. They've got these special pens, and I don't know. Technology is awesome, and I did a whole episode on technology a while ago. But anyway, VO, awesome. Thanks for sponsoring the show, and if you're looking for a VO, please use our discount code. So let's get right into it. I don't know how long this episode is going to be. It's probably not going to be that long, but it's really going to be important. The inspiration for this episode was really me needing to understand that midfielders have different roles, and I'm specifically talking about midfielders in the half space and the center space. And I want our players to have a clear idea of what their role is. And we're really just going to be talking about on the ball. Now, there are 3 different types of midfielders that I'm going to be talking about. There are hundreds of different types of midfielders. But for me, to simplify it, I really broke it down to 3 different types. Now, after I talk about the 3 different types, I'll talk about how I created a tactical activity, not a session, an activity that I ran for about 45 minutes for our players that really utilizes this concept. But first, let's dive into the 3 different types of midfielders. Now, when I'm thinking of this, and I mentioned again, players in the center space, half spaces, we could be talking about, for example, our formation, which is a 3-4-1. And in our 3-4-1, our 3 defenders, our center defender is actually a defensive midfielder. So when we have possession of the ball, I want my center defensive mid to push up and act as that center defensive mid. As soon as we lose the ball, they go back and they're actually a defender. So a center defender there. Now, that's really the first type of player that I want to talk about. This player for me is what I like to call the bridge player. Now, when we think about what a bridge is simply something that connects 2 things, right? You can talk about a bridge being something that connects 2 pieces of land over water. You can talk about it just connecting 2 roads, right? You can have a bridge on top of a road. Whatever that is, there could be way more examples than I can think of. But essentially, the job of a bridge is to connect 2 things together. And that's really the job of our bridge player. It's to connect 2 things together. And if we think about what those 2 things are, we can talk about 2 pieces of land. And you'll see how I get that in the tactical activity that we have. But essentially, if we take a line and divide it down the middle, then we have 2 different sides, right? We have our right side and our left side. So it is the bridge player's job to connect those two sides, right? So to move the ball from one side to the other. The second thing that I want my player, the bridge, to be able to do is control. I want the game to be controlled. Okay, and what does control look like? Well, control looks like the opposite of chaos, right? So chaos for me is balls flying in the air from one third to the other third, people just kicking it up, people just, not really organized, not moving the ball, not taking players on. Chaos is, in a game, just essentially what we've seen other teams play, right? Just kick the ball, hope it gets to the forward, hope they get it, drop kick, all those things. That for me is chaos. So for me, control is the ability to move the ball from one side to the other, from defense to forward, and just do that with passes, right? So that's really what we're looking for from the control player. Now, that doesn't mean that the control player isn't a player that dribbles into space. Every single one of our players, if they have space, they dribble, period. They take players on. I don't care where you are. If you are confident in taking a player on, you can do it. And our bridge players are one of our most confident players. They are the ones that consistently can take players on. And when they beat a player in that center defensive midfield area, what they've done is they've given us an advantage to dribble up, and then they'll pull another player, which will open another player, and then they'll make a penetrating pass, right? So for me, those are the two important parts of the bridge player, being the actual bridge, not only from one side to the other, but also from defense to midfield, midfields to forward, right? Because when we have the ball, they're technically a defensive mid. When we lose the ball, they drop back into our defensive line to create a back three, right? So these players are bridging both horizontally and vertically, and then control as well. So that's the first type of player that we have. The second type of player that we have is the player that we like to call the line breaker. The line breaker is the player that breaks lines with passes, right? So we're looking at through balls in behind the defenders. We're looking at the ability to see players making runs and just getting that ball behind that defensive line. That's really the role. They're scanning and they're constantly looking for that ball that'll get us into the final third. That's really what the line breaker does. Now, the space attacker is the third type of midfielder. Now, the space attacker, very similarly to the line breaker, receives the ball in space. Both of those players have to be able to play in between the defensive line and the midfield line, receive the ball in space. The difference is the space attacker is really a player that receives the ball in the half space on the turn and attacks the space with by dribbling, right? They dribble through the space, and then once they do that, what they're essentially doing is they're asking the defenders of the other team to make a decision. Now, that decision could be to confront them, and then they either make a pass or they beat them 1v1, or the defenders stay back, and now they're continuing to dribble and push our whole team up and get closer to the goal. So those are really the three different types of defenders: the bridge player, the line breaker, and the space attacker. All these three are different types of players that you see on the field. Now, these are just characteristics. So you can have a player that in a game does all three, right? You can have a bridge player that receives the ball on the half turn and then sees that they have space, so they become a space attacker, right? You could have a player that receives the ball that's an attacking mid, but they have pressure on them, so they reset the ball and to the other side, right? So they're acting as the bridge between both sides. But essentially what you want is to teach these characteristics to the players, right? And give primary roles to players. So my defensive midfield is most likely going to be a bridge most of the game. There are going to be moments when they're a line breaker and a space attacker, but most of the time, I just want them to be a bridge. My attacking midfield is really going to be that space attacker, right? The player that receives it on the half turn and just goes. My center mid, not my attacking mid or defensive mid, my center mid is really going to be that line breaker, receiving that ball and looking for a pass, okay? And what you can ask these players to do is, if they don't see that specific opportunity, all they have to do is reset and continue to scan for it. So if I'm a player and my primary job is to be a space attacker and I receive the ball under pressure and I don't think I can turn, all I do is reset. And then I try and find different places on the field to get into that situation where I can receive it on the half turn and attack the space, right? So what that does, and I think this is a really interesting argument that I've kind of thought through, is, well, okay, but couldn't they receive the ball and do something else, like I mentioned earlier, right? Couldn't they really receive it and solve the problem and become a different type of midfielders? And the answer is yes. But the question is, what skills do you want them to work on? Do you want them to work on that skill? If I want my player to simply work on the skill of bridging, they're going to need to constantly think of different ways to get open where they have passing lanes between both the right side and the left side. So I want them to continuously be thinking about, how do I solve that problem? How do I solve that problem? And there might be times where, they do that space attacker or the line breaker. But primarily the problem that I want them to solve consistently during the game, so they become an expert at it and they keep on repeating it, is their primary role. Hopefully that makes sense. Let's get into the tactical game that I spoke about earlier, and then I'm going to share on soccercoachingmastermind.com. Now, the way that I had it is a pretty big rondo type game. I had my defense as neutrals, and then I had my midfielders playing 1-against-1. So what does that look like? Let's talk about a 2-3-1, just to kind of get into it. So I have a box, which the box doesn't matter. It's about from half until the 18-yard box. So whatever that is for you, whatever it is that you're playing with, whatever formation. My 2 defenders are neutrals. My 3 midfielders are playing 3v3. So I would have 1 on the left side, 1 in the middle, and 1 on the right side as blue, 1 on the left side, 1 in the middle, 1 on the right side as orange. So it's blue against orange with, let's say, purple as neutral. When purple have the ball, the team that is attacking is always on offense, right? So purple is always on the team with the players on offense. So let's say blue has the ball. Blue gets super big. It's 2-3. And let's say the other team wins the ball. If they win the ball, then they reset to purple. And now blue's in the middle trying to win that ball back. Okay. I made it mandatory to do 15 passes before they look to score. The reason I did that was very simple. The 15 was just a made up number because what I was working on was the bridge part. Okay. So I wanted it to be a ridiculously high number so they can really understand their rules. Okay. So I didn't even really want them to look to score. I just want them to look to keep possession. But I wanted them to keep in mind that eventually they are going to score. So I wanted them in the back of their minds to be like, okay, once we get to around 15, let's look to attack. Now, here's what I did to really get the bridge across. I created 2 lines in the center space. Those 2 lines were about 5 steps apart, and they were coned off in blue. So that is the river. What I ask from my center midfield is to, when the ball, let's say, is on the right side, I wanted them to be on the right side of the bridge. And what I told the center midfielder was pretty simple. I do not want you to play in water. You are the only player on our team that can cross water because you are the bridge. So if you receive that ball on the right side, can we get that ball to the left side? And then you can cross the bridge that you've created yourself, since you are a bridge. And now you are part of the left side. So the bridge player would constantly be moving side to side, not playing in the center space, but playing at the edge of the center space and also a little bit into the half space. So we have that constant motion of back and forth. And that's really where we were at. We did that for 45 minutes, just having that player understand their role of the bridge. Now, what we did after that was I made the rule of after 15 passes, you can take a shot if you're anywhere. Anywhere you can shoot the ball. However, if you go into the 18-yard box, and we attack with the wingers usually, what I want is a one-touch finish. So what we're really looking for is after 15 passes, can we find a way to get that ball through ball, which is really that line breaker. So we break that line into it, then the winger comes in, and within one touch, that winger has to find a player in the middle. So we did that for a bit, and the players really weren't getting it, to the point where when we did a line breaker pass, that winger would get it and have to reset, which is fine, but we really want our players to be able to have passing lanes in that middle. So I asked them, we sat down, it was a really hot day, and I said, okay, what do you notice when we break that box, right? Because we had a white zoned off area, which is where we did most of it. And then once we passed through that white box, we were in the 18. So I asked, what do you notice when we got into that 18? And they said, it's very crowded. And I said, 100%. So when you're making those runs, what you should be looking for is a passing lane. Okay. If you do not have a passing lane, we can't get through. And then we started to really get that one-touch finish. We had players making those runs to break those lines. And that was the first session. That was my 2014 team and 2015 team. And one 2016 player. Anyway, then we did the exact same session. Exactly the same session. But we did it with our 9v9 team. Defense, neutrals, midfield, 1v1. So it was a 2 and then a 4. Then we had a player come in later and become that 3, and it was a 2, 1, 4. And the reason that I put them as different lines is because that defensive mid, that bridge player, they're also playing 1 against 1. So the reason I really like this is a couple of things. It really forces players to lose their defender, which is the most important thing, and get open. If we can continuously lose every single one of our players, fantastic. The other thing is that because we're moving side to side, is it's asking the defense to scan. And I'm constantly yelling, scan, scan, scan to my defenders. So we really want scanning, losing your defender. That's the most important thing. And then the bridge, right? So did the exact same thing with them, worked really great. So that for me is something that we're going to be working on heavily this week. And now we're going to start introducing some of these other midfielders, the line breaker, the space attacker. And the way that I'm going to introduce it is as follows. So now that we've done this for about a session, which was 45 minutes long, we're going to introduce more of the line breaker and the space attacker element into it. And what I'm going to say is this. For the line breaker, what I want is if you can turn within 2 touches, get that ball into the final third, go for it. If not, let's keep possession. Now, the space attacker is a little bit more difficult to get involved, but here's what I'm going to say. And again, remember, we're just talking about the midfielders, the 2 attacking midfielders, which are my center midfielders. I'm going to say that since they know who they're playing on 1v1, because I actually had them rotate. So I had the midfielders rotate in groups of 2. So they started, let's say, at the left wing every 10 minutes. Then they would shift 1/2 space to the middle. So the left wingers would become a left center mid. Then they would become a right center mid. And then they would become a right midfielder. So since they know who they're playing against, I will say if they can receive the ball behind their player, they are free to turn and attack and shoot. So the 2 ways to bypass this 15 passes, and I'm probably even going to make it 20 passes, because the only way to really attack that I want my teams to attack is through these 2 different options. Either a through ball into the final third, or a player receiving the ball behind the player that they're playing against. So I'll probably make it 20 passes or even 30 passes before they can attack, unless they become a line breaker or a space attacker, right? And then the other restriction I could add is bridge restriction. So I could then say, if, on the other hand, you use the bridge player to move the ball from the right side to the left side 4 times, then you can also attack. So keep giving them different types of motivation to really become these players, right? And then these players are all taking all these different roles because you're rotating them and you're allowing them to solve these problems. So again, I'm going to do a full video on this on soccercoachingmastermind.com. If you haven't registered for it, it's very simple. You just go to soccercoachingmastermind.com, and there you sign up for the platinum plan or the premier. I don't know. I'm pretty sure it's a platinum plan. If you have just kind of registered for the website and didn't do the platinum plan, then it's $10 a month. Then there aren't going to be any videos there. So I know there's a lot of people that just kind of registered for the website. That doesn't really do much from that point of view. So it's only $10 a month. It's like having a coffee with me. And I'm adding videos every single week. This week, I added to the deceptive dribbling part of it, which I added a fake shot. So if you ever wondered how to teach your players how to do a fake shot, then that is a video that is on there. There's also everything up to step overs, Maradonas, and now fake shot. And next week, I'm going to add the fake shot Maradona and combine them both. And then this video as well. So again, it's soccercoachingmastermind.com. The link is down in the... Well, thanks for listening to another episode of Coaching Soccer Weekly. This weekend is going to be really, really interesting. We have our 2014s playing. That's the teams that I'm going to coach. Our 2012s are playing. Our 2010s are playing. But I'm going to be primarily focused on the 2014. So I will talk a little bit more about that next week. The first game, we have all of our 2014s. The second game is going to be our 2015. So with a brand new goalkeeper as well. Our 2014 goalkeeper, who has just been amazing. He's gone for the holiday of, I guess, not a holiday, just summer break, which is another thing, by the way. I know soccer is primarily considered a summer sport, but for most of the season, we're not with our full team. Everyone goes away on vacation. So for me, soccer is actually more of a winter sport. Every single player I'm just thinking about, 80% maybe of the team is gone for at least, 2 weeks here, 1 month there. So for me, soccer is just a winter sport. But anyway, that's a topic maybe for a different show. But next week, I'll definitely talk about that. And I'll come up with something else for you as well. So until next week, enjoy the journey.
Hey, thanks for watching all the way to the end. And you can check out more of our videos right here. And if you haven't done so already, I would really appreciate it if you'd hit the like button and the subscribe button.